We've all heard the horror stories about homeowners associations, right? The little disputes over lawn ornaments or the wrong shade of beige trim. But today, we're digging into a story that goes way, way beyond that. This is a story about a neighborhood battle that simmered for 24 years before ending up in court, not once, but twice. So that brings us to the big question. Is it even possible to win against your HOA? It feels like this classic David versus Goliath story. Well, let me introduce you to Sam and Pipper Stangl. They're a couple from Tucson who didn't just take on their HOA, they beat them. And their story is honestly a masterclass in how to do it. Now, this whole thing didn't just pop up overnight. For more than 2 decades, the Stangls watched as this 2-acre common area right behind their house just got worse and worse, becoming this overgrown, totally neglected mess. They said it was a problem for the entire 24 years they lived there, and finally, they just had to say, enough is enough. And look, this wasn't just about some ugly weeds. The stakes got really serious really fast. All that neglect led to trash piling up, which brought in pack rats and, yeah, as you can see from Mr. Stangl's testimony here, rattlesnakes. This quote just cuts right to the heart of it, showing the real personal danger the family felt they were in. And if you want a number to really wrap your head around this neglect, get this. Over 24 years, that's 288 months, the Stangls calculated they saw landscapers in that specific area for a grand total of about 12 hours. That's a half hour a year. When you see a number like that, you can understand why they felt like they had to do something drastic. Okay, so in any fight with an HOA, it really boils down to one thing. It's not about what feels fair or what seems right. It's about what is written down in black and white in the association's own rulebook. And that rulebook is called the CC&Rs. Think of it as the constitution for the neighborhood. When you buy a house there, you're signing a contract that says you'll follow these rules. But here is the absolute key. The HOA has to follow them too. They are bound by the exact same document. And boom, this right here, this is the smoking gun. This is the exact language from Article VI of their HOA's own governing documents. And I want you to focus on one little word, shall. It doesn't say may, it's not a suggestion. It says shall maintain all property up to the exterior building lines. For the Stangls, this was it. Crystal clear, no wiggle room. So you can see exactly how the battle lines were drawn. The Stangls' position was super simple. Hey, the rules say you shall maintain the whole area. End of story. But the HOA, well, they had a bunch of different arguments. They said it was a natural desert, that it cost too much, that they were using their business judgment, and that a board meeting had decided to only maintain a 4-foot street. So, this all heads to the first big showdown. In November of 2021, both sides went before an administrative law judge. The Stangls laid out their case, showing 2 decades of neglect, and the HOA rolled out all their defenses. And the verdict? It was a slam dunk for the Stangls, a complete and total win. But the reason the judge sided with them is the most important takeaway from this entire story. Here's the core of that first ruling. The judge's logic was simple. The rule in the CC&Rs was perfectly clear. It was unambiguous, and because of that, it has to be enforced just as it's written. All the HOA's arguments about cost or business judgment, totally irrelevant. The knockout blow was that the HOA had zero proof they had ever legally amended that rule. But hold on, the story isn't over yet, not by a long shot. The HOA was not about to take that loss lying down. They immediately demanded a rehearing, and they got one, set for April of 2022. And this time, they came back with a completely new game plan. So for round 2, the HOA's playbook just completely changes. Instead of arguing about what the rules meant, they basically went on the attack. They started claiming Mr. Stangl was the real problem, that he got in the way of landscapers and was misusing the common area himself. The whole strategy shifted from interpreting the rules to just blaming the homeowner. But Mr. Stangl saw this for exactly what it was. He called it out in his testimony, arguing that it was just a total distraction. The idea that a single 30-second chat with a landscaper somehow caused a quarter-century of neglect, he framed it as just completely absurd, a way to change the subject. All right, so this is it, the final showdown. The HOA has thrown everything they have at this. New witnesses, new accusations, a whole new line of attack. The big question hanging in the air was, would any of this actually work? Could they convince the judge to change her mind? After all that, all the new testimony, the fresh accusations, the attempts to deflect, who came out on top? You guessed it, the Stangs won again. The judge reaffirmed her first ruling, and her final reasoning was a powerful lesson for every single HOA board out there. And here it is. This is the absolute mic drop moment. The judge basically said, look, your board might have decided in a meeting that you wouldn't maintain that area, but you don't actually have the authority to make that decision. A simple board meeting vote cannot just override the community's foundational legal document. If the HOA wanted to change the rules, they had to do it the right way, by formally amending the CC&Rs. So this incredible story of winning twice, what does it actually mean for you or for anyone else living in an HOA? Let's break down the key lessons we can all learn from this whole saga. Okay, lesson 1. You've got to read your documents. The Stangls won because they knew exactly what the CC&R said, and they just stuck to that plain language. Lesson 2, and this is a big one, document everything. There are decades of notes and photos or hard evidence that you just can't argue with. And finally, lesson 3, remember that plain language is your superpower. A clear, straightforward rule is incredibly hard to beat, no matter how many complicated excuses someone throws at it. In the end, this story isn't just about rattlesnakes in a backyard. It's a huge reminder that the rules apply to everyone, and that includes the very people who are supposed to be enforcing them. And it leaves every homeowner with a really important question to ask before a problem ever starts. What exactly is written in your community's rulebook? Because knowing the answer, that's your first and most powerful line of defense.